cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL The Betting Blitz. It is NFL Week 8, Sunday, October the 26th, 2025, the final Sunday in October. Fitting timing for a brand new show. It is the Shark and Mikey Money. We are here to talk some ball. We're going to be bringing you guys this show every Sunday going forward this season and hopefully for decades to come. If you guys are in the chat, get your coffee. If you're on the West Coast, it's 8 a.m., get out of bed. Hang out with us. 11 games this afternoon. Mike, it's a pleasure to be here. How you feeling this morning?
Brother, I am jacked up. I am excited about the show. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. So I had to keep my poker face on, but loving the opportunity. We talked about this idea, and I just excited to get to work with my guy. Love to do shows with you together here, and I'm excited that we finally have the opportunity. I knew the universe would put us together and find a way that we can match opportunities to get that cash together, brother. So I'm excited, man. Let's go. Let's have a big Sunday.
Absolutely. And as I said, if you guys are in the chat, I know you guys just watched our guy Ramon on Sports Money channel for about an hour and a half. If you're not burned out yet, please don't be. We're about to bring you the fire. It is a suddenly not so casual Sunday. As I said, we have 11 games, a lot of out-of-conference ball, a lot of buy lows, sell highs, and a lot of conversation. NFL The Betting Blitz begins right now. Not waiting around, going straight business. First game on the card, we're going to Atlanta. Dolphins traveling road back-to-back off a blowout last week in Cleveland, going to the Falcons, who are actually starting Kirk Cousins this week. When I was handicapping this midweek, I actually really wanted Michael Penix to be in the game. The sport right now just seems to be just injuries to quarterbacks everywhere. That all being said, I think Kirk Cousins has a buy element. I think he's playing for his career pretty much today. I do think the Falcons have access in this game. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, look, this is one of them tricky, we talked about this backstage. Lots of injuries to quarterbacks, a lot of situations that are kind of very fluid, even here a couple hours before kickoff. And so that's the purpose of the show, is to give you guys kind of those ins and outs of what we've kind of found from the latest and greatest. I like to look at cash flow. I like to look at trends here. We've got a big buy-in here on the Atlanta Falcons, 71% of the cash coming in, but a 50-50 split when it comes to the actual money itself. So spread 71%, bets 50-50 on the cash. Even the bookies are a little bit faded on this thing here. And I think it comes down to, you mentioned of these quarterbacks, Kurt Warner's in, Michael Penix is out. I'm sorry, not Kurt Warner. I was watching pregame.
Hey, is Kurt Warner in? I mean, coming back off the Northern Iowa track here.
I'm looking at him on TV. I can't believe he's going to play in the game this afternoon, but Michael Penix is out. Early morning announcements, Drake London was uncertain on this side. Problem is Miami's got a terrible run defense out there. They just cough up yards on top of yards on top of yards. And look, it's trouble in paradise on this Miami side of things, right? McDaniels, hot seat. I don't know what happens coming out of the bye week if they don't get it together. He's all but thrown Tua under the bus. Tua's all but thrown him under the bus. Tua's coming off at 3 picks last week. And yet somehow you're looking there going, well, how can you still like Miami at this point? One, you got a lot of dudes on the firing block right now. Two, you got a 7-point factor, means a touchdown. And with that movement in the quarterback side of things, what I know is this: you fade the NFC South in the favorite role. You're 185 and 112. It's a healthy sample. When Atlanta comes in on short rest, this is the one that jumped out to me. 91 and 52 is Atlanta on short rest. Then add in the injury factors and the quarterback situation. Dogs tend to bark against these Atlanta Falcons between weeks 3 and 8. They're 21 and 3. So I'm looking at this Miami Dolphins side of things here, but Atlanta in their home field against the AFC are 11 and 0 to the under. 11 straight unders in this spot out there. And that one really has a good feel to me for it. So I like this. It's moved from 46.5 to 44.5. I'll take the 44.5 on the under in this game. That's definitely a buy sign for me when it comes to trying to get involved. Lower scoring, see the ball kind of pound out on the ground and tick this clock away. What do you think, Shark?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree on the total. I do have some disagreement on the game. I think the psychology here for Miami is just dead, really. We're going to talk about some other games in the next few minutes where we think there's a buy low element to teams that are equally as terrible in theory based on their record. I just think Miami's out the door. I think Mike McDaniel is kind of a flat personality to begin with. I think he really was propped up by his scheme being a big hit a couple of years ago. You got to remember, Miami scored 70 points against the Broncos at home 2 seasons ago. Very scheme-driven morale. And when they were on the up and up, it just kind of fed into itself and they really continued that direction. Now that they're going down, I think it just is really continuing that way. And I think it's a tough spot. Road back-to-back, just got your ass kicked in Cleveland, got to stay on the road against an angry Atlanta team. And as I mentioned, I like the psychology for Kirk Cousins here. Cousins, obviously, when he signed here last year, was supposed to be the starter, at least in his mind. Then they drafted Michael Penix in the first round. I can't even imagine being with the Cousins family during draft night 2024, like looking around, like, why did we just sign in Atlanta? They just drafted this kid. Clearly, I'm going to be the backup. But the point is, I think he has a ton of motivation here. And ultimately, I just think Mike McDaniel's out the door. I'm going to give you guys the Falcons. A little disagreement, but we will keep it moving. Next team on the card, definitely no disagreement in this one. Bengals hosting the Jets in Cincinnati, 1 o'clock Paycor Stadium. Jets are 0-7. We're sitting here talking about Miami 1-6, AFC East. What happened? I don't know, but it's certainly not pretty at the bottom. This is Aaron Glenn. People thought this was a great hire, ex-player from the 90s, defensive coordinator last year for the incredibly professional Lions. You can't say professional about the Jets this year, but I do think road by plus 6.5, kind of stinky. I think it's the right side. Mike, any thoughts?
Again, we got ourselves another fluid quarterback. You talk about professional. It is certainly not professional to be throwing your quarterback under the bus as the ownership and saying we'd look a lot better if we could complete passes. So looking to go to Taylor, and then they pull the string back out, and in comes Justin Fields. They got to make some hard decisions there for the New York Jets. It's a tough game for me because I kind of agree with you. You look at this Jets and you look at some of these points. We got 74% of the bets on the Bengals, 53% of the cash, however. So again, that discrepancy, that disparity, that differential that says that some of the bigger bettors, maybe the sharper bettors, they like these points with the New York Jets, whether it be a lack of belief in what Flacco can do with these Bengals or not. But yeah, I think this is a tricky spot. I think I would probably want to get involved with the points here. Totals for me, it's a stay away. I mean, look, AFC North, non-divisional road games on a total between 37.5 and 45.5 are 14-1 to the over. So I don't know if I can get involved in this one. Sorry, that's a Pat stat. So I'm just gonna pass on this game track. I hate to do that, but I just don't like anything about this game whatsoever. It stinks. It's got a stinky line. It's got a stinky number. I would have to go Jets or pass.
Yeah, I think my inner contrarian self just absolutely loves this game. We're going to give you the Jets at plus 6.5. And truthfully, I know it looks terrible. I was posting this on X overnight. People were saying, Shark, I love your plays, but I don't love the Jets. Listen, I don't love the Jets. This is purely a numerical buy. The Jets have played 3 road games this year. One was actually in London, so 2 road, 1 neutral. They've actually performed well on the road. 2-point loss right in this range, plus 6.5 at Tampa Bay. They lost by 6 at Miami. They outgained Miami in that game by 100 yards. They performed actually very well there. And they almost beat Denver. Denver's one of the most upstart young teams in the league in London, 13-11. It wasn't an offensive showcase by any means, but the defense played. And that's been the model of this team now for 3 or 4 years, going back to the Salo window. Defense. And I think they're going to find it. I think they're going to improve. Aaron Glenn's a defensive guy. They had a defensive coach before. The defensive coordinator is an effective coach. And truthfully, I think Cincinnati's just a little too hot with Flacco here. 2-0 ATS with Flacco. Kind of caught a funky cover road, plus 15 at Green Bay. Most teams cover plus 15 in that spot. It's not really the Flacco group playing particularly well. And then they had a huge Thursday Night Football win against the Steelers last week. So I think this is kind of a trap letdown for the Bengals. I think the Bengals are not at this quality point. And one final point on the line. Denver laid 7 points in London. Theoretically, if the Jets can cover 7 in London against Denver, this is actually a short line for the Bengals. I just see a tight game. And I think we're gonna jump off this conversation as we get into the card in more detail. But there's a big difference between covering the spread and winning. I think the Bengals could win this game, but I think it's going to be one of those crazy, just wild 25-24 type of games. Take the Jets.
How do you feel about motivation when you look at the New York Jets quarterback side of things here? And you think Fields comes in here with a chip on his shoulder now? He's been turned down by everybody, thrown under the bus in his entire league at this point. And now the ownership's calling him out. You think that gives him a little chip and a little jump in his step?
Absolutely. It's a great question. It's a great point because we're sitting here telling you Miami's just kind of dead. Like it's probably like the coach is going to get fired. Like there's no energy in the locker room. Like they're not bouncing back. I think this is where the Jets actually have potential to get a little bit of momentum. I think Aaron Glenn's a good coach. Truthfully, I think he's a good coach. He's also only 7 games into his career. He's not about to get fired. This is not Mike McDaniel's season 3 or 4.
Right.
And I think Fields does have a lot to play for. And I think Cousins, Fields, and Glenn all fit the same psychological model. This is a survivalistic week for these guys. These guys are out to play for their careers today. And that's what you want to buy. I don't think Flacco and the Bengals have this type of motivation. Super motivation, Jets, take plus 6.5, and let's cash. Next game on the card, we're going into in this division, home game, Gillette Stadium in Foxborough. Patriots hosting the Browns at 1 o'clock. Patriots really looking great, I will say, surprisingly. I didn't think Vrabel was going to fail, but I didn't think he was going to succeed at this rate. 3 consecutive road wins, beat the Bills in prime time. Supposedly a trap the next week. Nope, cover road. Another trap. Oh, they're too hot. Nope, another cover road. Point being, is this the new Patriots? Are they just good? I think they are. I would look towards the Pats in this game. Mike, any thoughts?
Interesting. AFC East, I did not expect to kick off the way it did here. Obviously, Buffalo, I thought would have the run. They're absent a number 1 wide receiver and some salary cap issues to boot, so it's going to be a challenge. And yeah, Drake May comes in here, sets the single game completion pass percentage, beats the Tom Brady record for the New England Patriots. Heavy money coming in. You got 69% of the cash on the Patriots, 62% of the actual money. And this total's dropped from 42.5 to 40.5 on this one. Looking at these two teams, we've got a Falcons game next. So this is a nice little homestand for the Patriots versus this Cleveland Browns team. And I know you want to be in the Browns business after they allowed 14 or less points their previous game. 21-2 if you fade them boys out there. I think this is a Patriots smash spot. I don't see any reason why they don't keep going. I like Gabriel. I think he's a young guy. I think he's done something out there. I started this season thinking if you're the Cleveland Browns, you got 4 quarterbacks. You have no quarterbacks. And I think this is a New England Patriots team, very healthy. I'll tell you who I don't like in this game. If I'm going to give you guys a player prop, here's an official one. I'm going to take the under in the Ramondre Stevenson rushing yards in this game here. I just don't think this he's a goal line vulture. He's brought in there to be the goal line guy. Maybe he goes out there and nabs 2 touchdowns. It is National Tight End Week, so we'll have to address that and kind of consider that. But I like this guy's under rushing yards in this game today. I think it's a matter of, I'll get you the exact number here as I go back to my book here, Shark, but I'll kick it back to you and say that I'm going to take the under in the Ramondre Stevenson rushing yards.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation. I actually drafted Travion Henderson in my fantasy league coming out of Ohio State. They haven't featured this guy at all. And I was actually saying to the guy who I co-own this team with, are the Pats just putting him through like a boot camp? It's just like, son, you're a great player, but you got to earn your stripes. It's like, Vrabel, just put the kid on the field for God's sakes. But speaking on the game, just briefly, I just think you want to take the Pats in this game. First of all, it's a very strong line for the Pats. When you see Drake May laying a touchdown, let it be known the books are agreeing with this commentary that the Patriots are for real. This is just not a letdown. And the only time Dylan Gabriel has played a road game on U.S. soil, he did play one in London, 23-9 loss, same line range at Pittsburgh. And final point on this, I think you want to buy low on the Patriots. As we mentioned, they've been great on the road. They actually have not been great at home. Lost their first 2 home games to Vegas and Pittsburgh before exploding in week 4, 42-13 against the Panthers. They were only laying 4.5 against the Panthers, 7 against the Browns. Browns just blew out the Dolphins last week. You want to buy the Browns at home with that defense, not traveling. Take the Pats and let's cash. Next game in the car, we're going to Baltimore. One of a handful of games this week out of conference where teams really haven't played in 3 or 4 years. We're not really data abundant in this game, and we're certainly not data abundant now that the Ravens are not playing Lamar Jackson. I know a lot of people, including myself, actually played the Ravens at -6, 6.5 on Friday under the report that Jackson was going to play. He was at practice in full. All of a sudden, yesterday afternoon, it's Tyler Huntley. The line drops 3.5, 4 points. Absolute insanity. The league is actually researching this and investigating to see if there was some sort of misreporting. There had to have been because it was absolutely ridiculous. That all being said, it's Tyler Huntley. It's Caleb Williams on the road. The Bears are hot. They're actually 4-0 ATS last 4. I still see sharps buying low on the Ravens. Mike, any thoughts?
Unbelievable. Retroactive injury update status for Lamar Jackson. You got to believe that this little thing going on with the NBA maybe has some of these professional sports leagues kind of putting themselves in check. And they're making sure they check all the right boxes. It stinks to get a number like that and then have something. I mean, that's a pretty radical change, right? That quarterback's a huge component. Big money coming in on the Bears. Is it too much now? I kind of think there's maybe a little overreaction. Here's the thing with the Bears. 4 straight wins. You got to recognize and respect what they're doing out there. I just don't know if I buy it. I mean, I've seen what's going on with their passing game and kind of the lack thereof. We see some ups and we see some downs. I know this. When the Bears come in 6 or more days of rest and, coming off a win of at least 10 points or more, going out there, beating a team up and having a regimented, a regulated approach to the schedule, they're 0-15 against the spread. So lots of injuries on this Chicago side. I think also coupled with the Baltimore side, but there's players coming back on this Baltimore side that gets me excited about this Baltimore team here. I don't hate this Baltimore spot on maybe the money line. I know it's a little pricey, but Chicago's defense, I think Huntley's got a shot to go out there. I mean, look, if you look at these quarterbacks, I always try to look at baseball, starting pitchers. How's this guy rank up against this guy? Are they true number ones? Are they true number twos? Or are you playing a 1 versus a 2? I think these guys are kind of both number 2s at this point. So I think the team that's got some more depth to it in this case, this time of the year, coming off of some of the breaks and the buys that they just did, has to be the Ravens. And I believe in Harbaugh. So I don't hate this Ravens spot, despite the fact that the entire world goes, oh my God, Lamar Jackson's out. Now what are we going to do? Let's panic and let's go the other direction. I'm not buying it. I think this Ravens team's in a good spot here on their home field to go out there and get some respect on their name.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting week here, week 8. To a certain degree, it's kind of like a middle week in terms of the season where things potentially are going to reverse the opposite direction. The Ravens are going to uptick, period. They're 1-5. I mean, this team was projected to potentially be the Super Bowl representative from the AFC. Of course, injuries have been rampant, both sides of the ball. Obviously, Lamar Jackson not playing, but you got to go back to 2022. Tyler Huntley was the backup quarterback for the Ravens back then. He's bounced around since to Miami, I believe, for the last 2 years. He was actually 2-0 straight up at home outside of the division. So he can perform here. He's going to run for like 45, 50 yards himself in this game, in my opinion. But I think that leads me to the best looks in this game, which is Derrick Henry props. If Baltimore wins this game, and remember, after Lamar was announced out, it didn't go from -6.5 to Chicago favored. They still have Baltimore favored with Tyler Huntley. That's going to be Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry has shown signs in recent weeks of his old self. This is going to be a Derrick Henry game. They're going to pound the run. And Chicago has not contained the run on the road at all. Ashton Genty had not done anything in his rookie campaign for Vegas until he faced the Bears. He went over 100. Other running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs went over 100 or 97, I believe, on only like 11 carries. The Bears defense on the road is a sieve against the run. And in terms of the actual game, I think Baltimore can win the game. They kind of have to win the game if we're being honest. It's hard to go 1-6 and expect anything. We're talking about survivalistic Cousins, Glenn, Fields players. This is team survivalism here. It's crazy to say, but the Ravens, this is like their last day on earth today. Got to show up, boys, get the dub, but take Henry in the overs market and keeping it moving. Next game on the card, speaking of survivalistic stuff, yet another great buy low here. Houston hosting the Niners at 1 o'clock in Houston. Truthfully, this is where Houston, I think, starts to continue to get some upward momentum. They played a lot of road games. They just got beat in a primetime game last week at Seattle. This is the first of 3 consecutive home games. No bye weeks, no Europe, nothing. Just staying at home for like a month. I think this is where they get comfortable. I think this is where they show up. I like the Texans today. Mike, any thoughts?
Hey, one last component on that Baltimore game. One of my favorite Sharkisms throughout the time is line functionality. We see this and we look back and forth between the two. That's a statement you taught me a number of years back here. And I'll say this, Baltimore, still somewhat favored to win this division, still an odds a favorite to go out there and make the Super Bowl. So you're right about this being all in or nothing here for a team that's got 4 or 5 losses. That says something that the books still think these guys have a shot to do and be relevant. So Niners, Houston, right now we've got 83% of the bets and 75% of the cash on the San Francisco Niners side of things. And that's reverse line movement. Shark, we talked about this backstage. That scares the heck out of me, man, because I saw this Texans team and I guess I'm guilty of recency bias because I looked at it last week and I was like, man, these guys got absolutely nuked. And, the only component, I will say this, I lost on a Monday Night Football spot there, a same game parlay because CJ Stroud wouldn't quit At the very end of the game, he goes down the field. It's 1:30 in the morning Eastern time. He's up there in Seattle, and he goes and he finds a way to get a 5-yard penalty, then drive it in for a touchdown and screws my same game parlay. So I like a little inspiration in this guy here. This total is super low, 45.5 down to 41.5. 60% of the bets, 63% of the cash looking at this under. And, for me, San Francisco team that's really bad at running the ball, which is surprising with CMC. I just think that the problem, yes, Mac Jones is in. I like what he's done out there and how he's been consistent, but I just, this team doesn't have an identity. And it reminds me, we'll go back to some baseball again with the Mets. Some of these teams that don't have identities, you just don't really know who you are at this point. And it is National Tight End Day. I'd have to take a look at Kittle, kind of the founder, the adopting agent, the guy that was the innovator for a touchdown perspective here. I'll take a George Kittle touchdown. But I don't know about this side of things here. I know we talked a little backstage here. Plus 155 is the official I'll give out for the Kittle touchdown.
Yeah, if George Kittle scores, let that be the only touchdown of the game for the Niners. We'll leave it at that. But giving you guys the Texans on the money line here. And truthfully, again, as I said, this is a buy low. The team's 2-4. They've lost a bunch of coin flips. Their only home game this year against the NFC completely melted to the Bucs in a primetime game week 2. Probably should have won the game. It was a Baker Mayfield backdoor special. CJ Stroud has actually performed well at home in his career against NFC opponents. Of course, this is year 3. He is 4-2 straight up in this spot. Only losses, as I mentioned, backdoor against the Bucs, and last year, another primetime game against the Lions. Truthfully, this version of the Niners, without the middle linebacker, Warner, in the middle, who's their cog, their leader, holding the group together. And, of course, without Brock Purdy and multiple receivers, this is a shell of the old Niners. And, of course, yes, they're 5-2. Yes, they've looked solid. They have not looked good as a road dog outside of the division. Only game this year in this spot, week 6 at Tampa Bay, 30-19 Tampa. Keep point on the line. Tampa minus 2.5. That's your current line. You want to buy low on the Texans. They're well coached. DeMeco Ryans has some sort of relationship with Kyle Shanahan. He's going to be in the locker room. They're going to be juiced as hell. This is their first of 3 consecutive home games. As I said, this is where you buy the Texans. Take the Texans and let's cash. Next game on the card, first divisional game, Philadelphia hosting the Giants. Rematch of a game played in prime time a couple weeks ago. Giants actually won the game 34-17. I think that kind of leads us into this conversation. The Giants seem to be for real. Outside of a 5-turnover performance in New Orleans, which seems to be at this point a total outlier, they've looked great. They beat the Chargers. They beat the Eagles. And last week, truthfully, they should have beaten the Broncos in a really difficult road spot. This is not where you really want to lay over a touchdown with the Eagles, in my opinion. But, Mike, we're looking at a teaser here, I think, for the Eagles.
You got it, man. And I said at the start of the season, I thought that the number 2 team in the NFC East would be the New York Giants. And a lot of people were like, you're nuts. Dallas and Dak. And we'll talk about that game in a minute because of their defense, I think, is why their liability. We talked backstage. That Jackson Dark's got that dog in him, man. He was barking last week, and he wouldn't quit and give that game up here. Minus 10.5 have had some significant movement. Is this too many points for the Eagles to cover? We know A.J. Brown's out. One thing I'll say to you guys, the perception versus reality conversation. Perception is teams coming off a bye have a tremendous advantage. We'll talk about another team here in a minute. That's the second leg of the teaser. And yes, they do. 11 straight coming off the bye. But teams going into the bye have won it 68% of the time. It's like they kind of put it all on the field. They get excited about having a couple of days off, and they know they can go all in or bust here. And I'm going to take a shot with this Eagles team in a teaser. I like this thing. Normally, I like to tease up. I just expect this Eagles team, first time you've got some great narratives in this game. You got Jalen Hurts. Everybody's been kind of throwing this guy under the bus. All he's done is dominate the NFL, and you can go back and look at statistics. It's not a homer fact. He goes out there, he's throwing deep balls, he's throwing screen passes, he's getting out there, out rushing players, he's preventing himself from getting blitzed. He's doing the job. The big thing here is Saquon Barkley. First time Saquon Barkley will be at the link versus the New York Giants. So should have some extra bump in his step. They're going to need him to get rolling if they're going to have a shot to go out there and win this game. I do think they win. So I'll take the Eagles at the minus 1.5. And I'm going to tease it with the Bills, which we'll talk about in a minute. You do have 52% of the bets and 50% of the cash on the Eagles. 43.5s on the total are firm. They're holding. And that's 69% of the bets and 85% of the cash. This is the second time these two teams have met this season, divisional matchup. The Giants got the first one. Can't let them get this one. And I'd notate that because you've got usually I think that zigzag theory, Shark. You see a team, first time they play, they get a lot of points. Second time they play divisional games, we start to see this thing kind of gets held down to that under. And that's why I reference what's going on with this cash flow and the splits when it comes to the total. How do you feel about this game?
No, I agree with you. I think the under is actually a solid look here at 43.5. I have this game graded to be tight. It is pro football, 42 points on the average, but it is an under look. And as you mentioned, the Giants lit up the Eagles prime time, 34 points at home, MetLife in East Rutherford. They're probably not going to do that again. But here's my angle. I think the Giants cover the spread at plus 7.5. The Eagles win this game. And just to emphasize yet again, pro athletes are not worried about covering spreads. They're just trying to win games, particularly in the division at this number. This is not where you want to fade Jackson Dart. I can't say I was a believer. I actually faded him in his first career start. I had Justin Herbert to beat him in the Meadowlands. Herbert played like ass. Dart played great, whatever. But I've seen sustainability outside of the second half in New Orleans. And I understand people would say, okay, you lose at Denver, you're demoralized, this, and that. They played one bad quarter. And to even zoom in further, they played like 5 bad minutes. Like it wasn't really like they did anything terrible by any stretch. Full week off. Now you get a divisional game. And this is just not where Philadelphia is going to perform to margin, in my opinion. Going back to last year, Philadelphia is 2-6 ATS at home if Jalen Hurts is the starter. They're just not playing great ball. A.J. Brown is hurt. There's just a lot of moving parts. I really think this is going to be a tight game. I think Philadelphia does win in a real tight one, somewhere around like 22-21. But take the Giants at plus 7.5 and keeping it moving. Next game on the card, more out-of-conference stuff here. As I said, a lot of out-of-conference games this week. Bills in Carolina at 1 o'clock. Great spot for the Bills. I have the hat on. Mike loves the Bills. This is not to flatter Mike and make him feel good. It's a great look. Mike, you're a fan. You're a sharp prognosticator. What's going on with the Bills today?
I'll tell you it's maybe not what's going on with the Bills as much as what's going on with Carolina. Look at this team. I mean, they look like trash in the preseason. Everyone was throwing them out. They were garbage. They can't win games. And yet here they go producing offense. And wow, that's going to be the challenge for Josh Allen. Now, I mentioned this as part of the initial onset here, the second leg of the teaser. I think the Bills come through here after the bye. Sean McDermott has been on fire when it comes to post-bye week. He gets his team refreshed. He gets them recharged. And it's a great point mid-season for the Bills to have this bye. Yeah, they've come in having lost 2 straight games, but Josh Allen's never had a 3-game losing streak in the NFL. 10 straight games after their bye is the number that the Bills have gone out there. That's the best record in the NFL. One thing of note, they had a tornado watch out there earlier this morning, some early showers. They do expect, of all the NFL landscape today, this was the game that had some speculation around whether it was going to be wet or not when it comes to a weather perspective. But it looks like it should all blow up by the time game time kicks off here. And I mentioned 75% of the bets, 69% of the cash are on the Bills. Not a ton of movement there. There's some hooks involved if you're looking at this thing. Trend for me, the Bills 10-0 to the under. If they lost by 7 or more points the previous game, they tend to shore up and play defense. And they're going under these games, not just by 1 or 2 points. They're going under by a margin of 10, Shark. 10 points in a spot where, we're looking at a Panthers team and, they can carry the ball. That can certainly be a little bit of a challenge for the Buffalo Bills because their run defense, it's a little porous to say the least. The thing about this is 3rd and 4th down situations are where the Carolina Panthers struggle the most and one of the worst in the league to do it. So you take a team in Buffalo Bills that like to go out there, they run the ball and they run it a lot. They run it more, 2nd most rushing yards per game across the NFL. That's a bad mismatch for a Carolina Panthers team. I think they get chunked on throughout this game and they move the chains. The Bills keep moving that clock. And I think that does complement the under here, but it'll be the second leg of the teaser for me and taking the -1.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not wearing a hat casually. This is my best bet. Take the Bills at -7. At 7.5 now, you can still get 7. I don't think it matters. I think margin is coming in this game with significance. A couple points that I think really stand out here. Buffalo is 0-4 ATS last 4. That's just a bye. This team's not going to cluster 5, 6, 7 going non-covers. Also, really situational stuff. For whatever reason, Buffalo's not performing well in primetime games this year. They've had a lot of them. They're clearly a marquee team. That's why. They're 0-4 ATS in primetime games. The only time this year They played a road Sunday game at 1 o'clock. 20-point win at the Jets. Same line structure, -7.5. And what you're looking at with Carolina is too hot. This is where you want to sell them. 3-0 straight up and ATS last 3, and you're getting Andy Dalton. We said this in the intro, carousel of quarterbacks, backups across the league today. Andy Dalton last year in replacement of Bryce Young, 1-4 ATS, average loss by 22 points per game. Just not the guy. This is one of the best spots you'll ever find. It's an elite team. They're off a bye week. They've lost 2 straight games. They're 0-4 ATS last 4, and they're catching a backup quarterback who's going to throw interceptions. It's going to be a blowout. Take the Bills at -7, and let's cash. Next game on the card, we're going 4 o'clock. More divisional football. Not a lot of divisional football this week. This is one of them. Bucks traveling down to the Superdome. I think it's another contrarian special. I think this is a nice collaboration between myself and Mike. We're having a nice little conversation before the show. I think there's definitely some good dogs this week. I think this might be the best dog. Divisional dog, revenge game, short line, tough spot for the Bucks. Mike, what's going on here?
Open up 5.5. It's dropped to 3.5. 75% of the cash on the Bucks bets. 59% of the cash overall on the Bucks here. So, red flag, bigger bettors. I always look for those differential, Shark. 16 points is a big spot there to show that there's some money coming in on this Saints side of things, and it's respected by the books. That's how we kind of read this information. It's not that old school. Where do these numbers come from? And how do we know this is something that we're looking at as a tool that we've been using for a number of years, pioneers and innovators when it comes to the cash flow splits and trying to kind of read these lines. 45.5s have moved to 46 and 46.5s. You do have 58% of the bets and 65% of the cash on the under. How can you back the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Not, again, a recency bias situation. And then on the other side of things, well, you've got these New Orleans Saints and what's going on there. How about this, though? Spencer Rattler, as much as maybe he got some flack at the start of the season, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a comparison, and his metrics, his stats are leading that bottom third of quarterback status in the NFL. I referenced Trevor Lawrence because this guy came in out of Clemson, national champion, a lot of accolades, throws the ball around, uses his feet to extend drives, and yet somehow at 1-6, Spencer Rattler's found a way to kind of put himself on top of this thing. And I like that. I think you got a quarterback that can go out there against a clearly banged up team, top to bottom in the Tampa Bay Bucks. We saw it with their last game. They lost 24-9 against the Lions, a trend that I started following last year. You want to fade teams after they play the Lions. That team just physically wears you down, mentally wears you down. We laughed about it on one of the live streams, coaching wise. They don't go for it, or they don't punt on 4th down. They don't kick field goals. They go for it. And so that just drains and beats you up, and you're already exhausted. We saw Mike Evans leave that game with some shoulder injuries that last time around out there. And on the flip side of things here, the Saints, what do they really got going on? There's not really any expectations on them. They're at home. They're in the Superdome. Everyone's excited about just football today. You fade the Bucks, believe it or not, in week 8. Week 8 Bucks, fading them. 25-6 if you fade them, boys. And I kind of came up with this number here. How about this? Shit dogs with a record under 500 afternoon games in NFL football on Sundays. 6-1 overall. I think this is a good Saints spot of things here. Not to mention, when you have the Saints with the rest advantage, the unders tend to prevail. Their defense comes in healthy, and that's probably the number one strength of this team at this point. 17-4 to the under. I think they do a nice job of keeping Tampa Bay off the board here. I think we got a live dog, Shark, but current number I can get right now is 4.5 over at DK, so I'm going to take it.
I agree. I think this is a terrible spot for the Bucks. First of all, the Bucks weeks 1 through 6 were winning some of the tightest games throughout the entire league. I believe 1 possession games every single week. Again, statistics. So this is not any shade to Baker, Bucks, nothing. It's statistics. When you're winning a bunch of coin flips, the games are that close every week and you win all of them. It's supposed to come the other direction. On tonight, as you mentioned, this is a rest advantage for New Orleans. It's not just after the Lions. The last 4 weeks, Tampa Bay has played against Philadelphia, at Seattle, San Francisco, at Detroit. Those are marquee teams in the NFC. They've gotten their ass beat for 4 consecutive weeks, and now they got to go to a divisional opponent in a dome, which is going to be live as hell at 4 o'clock. And Mike, you said it. This is, again, not Bucks Saints October 26th here. This is historical football. These funky 4 o'clock times. This is not 4:25. This is not a national game. There's not an 8-team, Fox list or Fox group coming in here. This is a weird 4:00 time. It's just leaning towards the dog. It's kind of this weird spot, road back to back. And, as you mentioned, Spencer Rattler has been scrappy. He's been performing better. Last year, he did get absolutely hammered at home against the Bucs, 51-27. Key point, Saints were actually up at the half, and the Bucs just lit him up. That was Rattler's first career start. He's learned. I think they're going to compete. It's going to be a tight game. Take the Saints at +4.5. And let's cash. Next game on the card, 425. Talking about these backwood 405 games. This is not that. This is national. This is big time. This is Dallas in Denver, yet again out of conference. First time in, I believe, 4 years. Not exactly a rivalry, but I think a tough game. Mike, we were talking about this before the show. A lot of angles on tonight's card. This one probably the hardest. Dallas catching a field goal roughly on the road. They've been pretty good in this spot. Maybe not. Denver last week played horribly. Expect a bounce back. I really have nothing in this game. I think this is a great take your notes out, write some notes, crack a beer, and watch game. I have nothing. You have anything in this game?
Yeah, I got a couple spots I'm looking at, mostly on the player props here. So Dallas, Denver, this thing opens up and you got a +5.5. It's dropped to 3.5. It's correlated line movement. 78% of the bets and 84% of the cash have come in on the Cowboys. Quick side note there. We look at percentage of bets. Typically, that's all the tickets being written. It's parlays, it's teasers, it's prop bets. It's you name it. It's $1 bettors, $5 bettors, $100 bettors. It's the soup. It's everything that goes into it. Then we look at the percentage of money, and we typically look at that as the bigger bettors. Not necessarily sharper bettors, but we know that guys aren't coming in with 10 dimes dropping it on a game because they're Joe Schmo public. So we try to look at that and say it's kind of that public versus sharps, and how does it correlate? They're both in alignment, and books have respected it. It's gone from that 5.5 to 3.5. Totals moved up 45.5 to 51.5. 49% of the bets and 76% of the cash on the over. Agreed with that movement. I think these two teams don't play any defense. We're going to see this game. Now, Broncos, I know, can play some defense, and that's their thing. They had a nicely ranked defense out there, but the problem is strength of schedule, Shark. They haven't played any teams that really pass the ball like we've seen Dak Prescott do this year. Some are saying Dak Prescott's got himself a little MVP pace of the season out here. The problem for the Cowboys is their defense. So how do you nullify that? What do you do if you're these Dallas Cowboys team? And I'll tell you this, when you got a total greater than 45, so if it's going to be a shooting gallery, or at least the books expect it, you want to fade Dak Prescott against the better teams because you're 31-11 in those fade spots. We know the narrative about these fourth quarters. What a crazy fourth quarter last week for the Broncos. Not quitting, Bo Nix, big you-know-whats, and coming out there. Now, the problem is you've got some linebacker issues with Dre Greenlaw on the Denver Broncos side of things, some beat-up secondary out there. And again, I mentioned Dallas doesn't really have the ability to compete. Offensively, they can hold up to snuff with anybody, but defensively, how do you nullify that if you're sitting there on the Dallas side of things? Well, you got to run the ball. And that's where I think the opportunity excels here from a Dallas side of the house. So I'm going to be looking for some player props as the day evolves. I'll tell you this, the Cowboys 0-9 if they cover by 15 or more of their previous game and threw at least 250 yards. So you got an 0-9 Dallas spot in this situation out there. And I like to look at the other side of this thing. Speaking of the passing game, let's take a look at two player props. Let's look at Bo Nix over 1.5 passing touchdowns. And then Cortland Sutton over 63.5 receiving yards. He is the target out there. 33 receptions, 469 yards. He's averaging 67 a game. So think about it. 63.5. He's averaging 67. We have a little built-in margin there just based on average, and that's not assuming he's playing a team that can be exposed like the Dallas Cowboys. 3 touchdowns, 50 targets, 7 games out there. I think it's a good price for us here. Cortland Sutton over 63.5 receiving yards. Bo Nix over 1.5 passing touchdowns, and a heavy lean to the run game for Dallas. What do you think, Shark?
I agree the over is the best look in the game. As I said, this is the only game I don't really have any good angles. I mean, I went through my usual process on this game. I just think it really could go either way. Dallas, as I mentioned, has been solid on the road at the AFC, but not great. Like they kind of coin flip. They could cover, they could not. And I think Denver is equally as difficult to figure out from the standpoint. Denver really caught wind last year as a home favorite. And last 2 weeks, I can't say I was impressed. This is just one of those flux games for me where it's like they either bounce back and show us they're legit or they're actually just cratering down a little bit, because the effort in London against the Jets was actually pathetic.
Yeah.
And then to come home last week against the Giants and really look useless until the fourth quarter. Of course, 33 points in the fourth quarter. They were pretty much dead the whole game. So the point is they're going to bounce back in theory. but maybe not. I just don't know. So we're not going to waste any more time on this game. As I said, crack a beer, watch the game, take notes, and we'll learn and keep it moving. Final game in the 4 o'clock slate here. Not entirely sure why this game is being played at 4:25. I was talking about these backwood 4:05 games. This should not be a national game, but it is. I think this was classic NFL making their schedule back in like May or June, the national schedule, and they said, hey, this will be interesting. We got a divisional game. These teams never really get on national TV. We have the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward, against a divisional opponent. Good idea, guys. Well, it didn't really come to fruition. The Titans are absolutely abysmal. They're catching 2 touchdowns or more in this game. Cam Ward has been absolutely horrendous on the road. He already got blown out this year at home against the Colts, 41-20 in week 3. I honestly don't love this game. I just don't see Tennessee keeping it close. I think the Colts probably blow them out. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you in this game. Like I saw a lot of people I respect earlier in the week talking about the over, but where's it going to come from on the Titans side of things here? You got to, Colts can go out there and put up 40 points on their own, but you still got to hope the Titans can do something. And you mentioned the records with the road travel and young quarterbacks, especially on this Titans team that's turned over coaching staff, and 3.5s have swelled to 14.5s. And look, Indiana Jones is him, man. He's going out there. They're doing, you can only play who's in front of you. So they've taken some grief about their schedule, but he's doing a job. And I said this preseason as well. This is the best team Daniel Jones has had in front of him. They're showing ability top to bottom, start to finish. They're not fluky little spots out there. And so I think they put the belt to the ass of this Tennessee Titans team. I like this a spot where 2 things. I've got a little 2 touchdown parlay that I put together. And one of the guys in there is Jonathan Taylor, but I'm going to take the team total over 31.5 for the Indiana Jones led Indianapolis Colts here. You can get some 30.5s. I thought this was an even number spot, -104 for the team total over 31.5 on the Colts. They're at home. They're in a prime window. They got themselves a good situation against a struggling team. I think that's the best way for us to get paid. I don't want to get too cute with it and try to 14.5 points. Yeah, but the back door opens up when you beat the shit out of them. I don't know, Shark. What do you think?
Yeah, it certainly is a line that would suggest blowout. This is definitely not like a sexy underdog line, but the point here is, at what point is there a market cap on the Colts? It's like we said with the Broncos capping out the last 2 weeks, but their big time environment was the previous 4 weeks and last year. The Colts are leading to that point where they've been upticking. At what point do they cap? And you saw it last week. They did beat the Chargers, but it's kind of a funky game. Herbert really played poorly and kind of facilitated their points. It wasn't entirely the Colts playing so great. Like, sometimes you win a game just because the opponent is so bad. That could, of course, be the case here because we think the Titans are bad. It is a Colts line. I think the total at 48 now has gotten steamed a little too high. If you wanted to take an over in this game, you could have gotten 45.5 last Sunday or Monday. That was your over line. And this does matter. Again, I want to emphasize this because it's so precise in pro football. 2 points matters. I think this game is going to finish right around 48 points. You're coin flipping now. I would lean towards the Colts. It's a trash game, and we'll keep it moving. Final game of the card, primetime game, big-time stuff here, kind of the polar opposite of the previous game. This game has a lot of intrigue. Packers at Steelers at 8:20 at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh. This is the first time Aaron Rodgers has faced his old team. Very interesting from a narrative standpoint. I think this is another game that is going to be an incredible watch. Mike, I believe you're leaning towards the Steelers in this one. Talk to me.
Yeah, we might be a little head-to-head on this thing here. 69% of the bets, 82% of the cash on the Steelers. It's moved from 2.5 to 3, so there is some slight reverse line movement there. And the total, they're looking at points, 44.5 to 45.5. 54% of the bets, 76% of the cash on the over. I joke with my good friend Razor Sharp Picks about how soft his boy is there in Jordan Love. And look, let me put some data behind it, right? They're 4-1-1, but dead last of 38 qualified quarterbacks under pressure. He's 34.5%. Mike Tomlin, on the other hand, as a home dog, barks and he bites. They're 8-0 against the spread. They're covering by a touchdown, a full tutty in that spot out there. And they can run the ball. They can pass the ball. They're a deep team, albeit an older team. I said in the offseason, is there any team that's gotten more hype but had more years or more miles on the tire than this Pittsburgh Steelers team? Flip side of that thing, you look at Green Bay coming in. Big games coming up for this Green Bay Packers team as well. But look, you got the Aaron Rodgers factor in this thing and the conversation off pre-game here. Aaron Rodgers might be done this year. He's got 22 years or so under his belt. He might come back again, but he does want to finish his career with the Green Bay Packers. So kind of mum's the word. He said he respects the organization and everything that's going on. You got to respect Kraft. Obviously when it comes to National Tight End Week, we haven't talked on it too much, but I don't necessarily believe in some of that stuff. That being the case, though, look, you got a lot of weapons on this Pittsburgh Steelers team. And a +3, 21-7-3 is the Mike Tomlin record as the dog. I do believe, again, we've got another live dog situation in the Steelers at home on primetime. Nobody gets the boys fired up more. And if you're the Packers, you got Pittsburgh. Then you got Carolina. Then you got Philadelphia to kind of get this thing rolling. And that's a big rematch for these guys. So this isn't a spot I think you catch the Packers flat. I think they'll be ready to go. I'm not discounting their preparation and their antics and tactics behind it, but for me, this is a spot I want to get involved with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think there's an opportunity for these boys to go out there and fire. They know that the division's at hand, and they got a big game coming up against the Colts, so they got to bring their best here today and follow it back up again. This is also coming in off that little mini bye week, so I like this rested Pittsburgh Steelers team +3.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't disagree. And obviously, truly, like these games, there's always a great counter angle to either side. There really,
Sure.
It's pro football. It's a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's probably a future maybe, deep playoff quarterback in Jordan Love. It's two big franchises. It's going to be a great game to watch. And, of course, the line at -3. The books don't have this projected to any margin, really. I do lean towards Green Bay. Officially, I will give you guys -2.5. I got that at -120 overnight. I think it's a great number as well at -2.5. What I'm looking at here truly is another buy low on a team. As I mentioned, the Bills are coming into tonight's game 0-4 ATS last 4. The Chargers were 0-4 last 4, and you saw what they did, 37-10 against Minnesota. Point is, Chargers, Bills, Packers, all top-level teams. Packers are also 0-4 against the spread last 4. They've looked incredibly flat, if I'm being honest. It goes back to September 21st at the Browns, took a 13-10 loss. Then played a lackluster primetime game against the Cowboys, an overtime tie, 40-40. Played another flat one at home against Flacco and the Bengals, didn't cover. And then last week didn't look particularly good at Arizona. I was actually saying this 5 weeks ago on a show, looking ahead to this window. And I did say on record, take the Browns in that game because this is entering the flat zone for the Packers. This is where I think they exit the flat zone. I think this is a huge game. And the narrative that Aaron Rodgers needs this to beat every team is 100% valid. The motivation will be there. The stadium will be loud as hell. But here's the point. Motivation means nothing when you're 42 years old playing pro football. It's great to care and try. I just don't think the talent level is there. And if you look at Pittsburgh this year, most of their wins have come against very lackluster competition. They've gotten outgained across the entire season by a significant margin. They've been propped up by a huge turnover cluster in their direction. Jordan Love's not going to turn the ball over. He's been playing flat for weeks. The Packers are 0-4 ATS last 4. I really think this is where you want to buy the Packers. Of course, first episode, only heads-up spot. Mike, it's going to be an opportunity to not only enjoy, but dominate. That's 49 minutes, the fastest 49 we promise you will find on the internet. Mike, give us some best bets. We'll see if we got any questions.
Yeah, man. So we went down the line. I gave you guys a slew of plays, actually, a bunch more than I thought I would get involved with here. So love that teaser. I think that's the best spot on the board for me here when it comes to getting a 2-spot action there. I'm going to go with them Saints +4.5. I'm going to go with this team total over. I like this Baltimore -2.5 as another ad in the Atlanta under 44.5. I dropped them in the chat for you guys as we went, Sharky, but great job, my man. I was excited to get together with you. I know it's going to be a fun Sunday, an opportunity to dominate, as you say, and I'm thankful that you're here with me, man. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it for the rest of the season. We've always been looking to do this and put that flag in the ground for Sunday football. It was just a matter of finding the right partner to do it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to make a ton of money. That's what it's all about. And appreciate you doing this with me, my friend. And make sure you guys do hit that thumbs up button and leave some comments in the chat regarding your favorite bets. You can follow me at PimSlapPod.
Yeah, absolutely. And next week we'll do a little Q&A as we get the chat ramped up. And you guys can drop questions and we'll get in there. And I've been doing parlays, just fun parlays, like $5, $10 pizza money, just for fun. But we'll skip that. My desktop actually cracked out overnight, so I don't have the books streaming in front of me. So it's going to be a little difficult to do that. So next week, same time, 11 a.m., we'll be on here. We will do Q&A and a group parlay for fun. But that's the show. My best bet, take the Bills, and let's fucking go. For Mike and myself, guys, bet responsibly. Please drop likes, reposts, comments on YouTube and Twitter. We will get back to you. We appreciate you guys immensely interacting with the first episode of NFL The Betting Blitz. It is week 8, October the 26th, 2025. Stay fast, stay strong, stay disciplined, and let's dominate.